Do you find that your emotions get triggered and stirred up and it's disturbing your peace?
On today's show, we're going to be talking about triggers, how they show up, and what you can do about it. Stay tuned.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Awaken Your Spirit. We are your hosts. I'm Dr. Aaron Garcia.
And I'm Veronica Mendez-Garcia. And our show is about inspiration, motivation, and developing the mindset to live a happy and abundant life.
We're live here every Mondays and Wednesdays at 9 a.m. Pacific Time, 12 p.m. Eastern. We're live on Facebook at Aaron and Veronica and also on YouTube. If you'd like to join us each time when we go live, make sure you guys turn on the live notification button in the feed here. And if you're on YouTube, subscribe to the channel and turn on that little bell so you never miss an episode of when we go live. Today, we're talking about emotional triggers and how we get stirred up and how it can really affect us in our life and what we can do about that. But before we get into all of that, we always like to start off with our first segment of our show with our inspirational moment with Veronica.
So inspirational moments is when I like to read something inspirational. And I think I have my inspirational moment. my phone just shut off, but I got it. All right. So this inspirational moment is it's something by Abraham Hicks. And this is a channeled information that comes through Esther Hicks. For those of you who aren't familiar with Abraham. So it's actually a woman. And it says, there is no state of physical decline or damage that you could not recover from. None, not any, if you knew it. If you wanted it and knew that you could. And that's those miracles that they talk about every day. They're not miracles at all. They are the natural order of things. But because they are rare, people think they are miraculous. They're not. That's the way it's supposed to be. You're supposed to thrive. And this was from, it's actually when they were down in San Diego, and this was way in 2002. But it still makes sense today.
Yeah, it's that concept of when things happen in our life, we can, if we're unaware of how we create things in our life, people can say, oh, that was just luck, or it was just bad luck, or just the wrong timing. But when we really pay attention, when we really are conscious of our actions, the things that we do, everything leads to an effect.
Yeah.
And so whether you're achieving something that you really love in your life or something that you don't, we create that. And so by understanding that, we realize, Veronica and I, that we're the ones that created that. There is no chance or luck that everything can be created by design, but we have to be able to pay attention to that.
Yeah. So that was inspirational moments.
You guys enjoy that? Give us some hearts, give some likes here into the feed. If you know that there's anybody that can benefit from the message here today, please share this with them, tag them into this feed here, because we never know who this message is going to impact. And that's why we really enjoy doing this show here for you guys. And I want to say hello to a few people that are joining in with us. We have Leroy Wicks.
Hi,
Says good morning from Iowa. Good morning,
Good
Leroy.
morning.
You guys are joining with us wherever you're at from the world. Let us know where you're coming in from. Say hello. If you're new to the shows, type new so we can say hi to you as well. We'd love hearing from you guys. If you have any questions, type those here into the comments as well, and we will get those to the best of our ability. All right. So today we're talking about emotional triggers. What triggers you? What triggers me? What triggers you? And this is something that Veronica and I have been working on with ourselves, but also with our clients for, over almost like a decade now with clients, and finding when things show up in their life, when they're getting emotionally disturbed by their outside environment, when they're getting upset by certain things, or whether it's they're getting frustrated, they're sad, and they find like, I don't know why I'm feeling the way that I'm feeling, but I'm feeling this way.
Yeah.
There's usually a reason behind that, and something is stirring up within them that's showing up today.
Yeah, and we all have the triggers. It's an indicator to let us know that there's something that we need to work through, because that's why they show up. And it's for our own personal growth and to also expand our consciousness.
Absolutely. And I know there's things that have triggered me in the past, and we find that there's still triggers because we are all experiencing this world that's around us, and we have emotions, and our emotions are our guidance system. They let us know when we're on track or when we're not on track, if we're going down a path that we really want to be on. But it's there to guide us, and we're not really taught how to use this system. But because of our experiences that we all go through, and we have a lot of experiences that, our subconscious mind records every little second that we have in this world, there's going to be some scenarios that show up that can be very emotionally significant in our lives. And if we don't learn how to process those in that time, then it becomes an imprint within our nervous system. And later on, we find that we get triggered.
Yeah. So like this whole thing that's happening around the world with the COVID and people having to wear masks and the lockdown where, we couldn't really go anywhere. Like we could, but everything else was shut down. And so there wasn't, many places to go. It was really affecting a lot of people, and their emotional stuff started to come up, and you see people, being frustrated, and just comments that are, appearing on social media and things like that. It was a big trigger for a lot of people. Yeah.
And also with everything going around the world with, the racial tension that's been going on here too. It's like you see there's a lot of emotional triggers that going on in our life, whether it's in a society as a group trigger, but also we have our own personal triggers that tend to show up. And you'll know when that happens because we get emotional. And that emotion can be, we get upset or angry. We could get very sad, or it's like, I don't know why I'm feeling so sad or depressed today. And there's so many different triggers that going on around us, but we find that when you pay attention and you're aware of them, that's an opportunity for you to work on something within yourself. And the whole concept is to learn how to respond better when these triggers show up and what they represent in your life.
Yeah. So, with the racial thing, that really triggered a lot of people. And, maybe some of those people have experienced either racial or maybe gender type of racism in a sense. And they got triggered by it. And also, when you think about it, what about past lives? For those of you who believe in past lives, what if, there was something in the past life where there was something of inequality or, male, female, or racial tension in the past? That could have really brought up stuff for people, and they're not sure why they're so triggered, but, sometimes that stuff happens and it'll trigger stuff.
Yeah. In fact, we worked with people on that where something was really bothering them, and there was like no reason for them to get so bothered or upset. And we found that there was really no incident that had happened in their life that they can think of or recall. And by going through a bit of a process, something was showing up within them that said, okay, something past life, we didn't know what it was, but it's interesting because through a visualization process, they were actually able to like see images, or a picture showed up in their mind. And it's like they were there, they saw something, and we can't prove that all this was true or that happened, but in their reality, it was real because they can feel the emotion and the heavy release that was coming out. It was almost like when you bottle something up that you've never dealt with, and it finally comes to the surface and everything comes out like floodgates. And that's part of the healing process, is why we react to certain things in a different way. Some things we can explode on. It's like just one little tripwire and we can go off.
Yeah.
Whereas some other things, like one thing might affect one person more than another. And you think like, why are they getting so upset about this? It doesn't bother me that way. Or how come they're not getting as bothered as I am? And it can go, everybody has their own persona on this. But what happens is, because we have our own individual consciousness and experiences, we have our own value systems, what's right, what's wrong. And so we all take in the world a bit differently. But the concept would be, how can we uproot? How can we let go of these emotions that we hold on to, and they're there just to show us, hey, there's something more to work on within ourselves.
Yeah.
And the more we work on ourselves, we become desensitized. Things don't bother us as much when they used to. So that way, when these things show up in the future, we don't get as triggered or react in a negative way.
Yeah. So I've worked in, with past life stuff, and we've cleared out emotions that were there. Like for me, the concentration camps showed up.
Ooh.
And, you helped me through that. And it was like, I could see it. I was there and just feeling, I had a dream also about that.
Mm-hmm.
And so we worked on it. You showed me pictures of like Hitler and things like that.
Anytime we watched a movie.
Yeah. And my body just shut down. Like we were muscle testing, and it was there, and it showed up and went back to past lives. And, but it's interesting how that emotion was still there. That energy imprint was still there. And, with the dream, it was so real, and just being like, locked up in this room, like the doors were closing and people were like, oh, we're going to take a shower. And then all of a sudden, like, I knew that we weren't, I knew everybody was going to die. And then all of a sudden the doors close and the gas starts coming in. And then I could, right away I could smell people, like the people dying, like that death smell. It was wow. Really weird in the dream, but it had that imprint of that time. So it was really interesting. And now I clear that. And even when I look at Hitler and things like that, it doesn't trigger me. Or
even talking about this right now.
Yeah.
Because as you're talking, I imagine you're getting an image in your mind.
Yeah. Well, I could see, what happened, but I don't feel that same charge as I did before.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes even if we even test other people, like if you say the name Hitler, their body can shut down, also because they know that, he did some terrible things. But it's just interesting how our body, our nervous system responds to that.
Yeah. Let's say hello to a few people here right now. We have Stephen Smith who's joining us from Sarasota,
Steven.
Florida. Says good afternoon. He's on the East Coast. Well, good morning. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Leroy says, yes, as you both know, we have been through traumatic events and have worked through those hard trials and tribulations. We are to be lights in the darkness, an encouragement to those who are crippled by fear and hopelessness. Our struggle is their lifeline.
Yeah.
He also says, amen, Aaron. We have been blessed to be blessings to others. Our journey is unique, and compassion is what people need. Jesus was a healer, servant, and love was his gift to the outcast, sick, brokenhearted, and loved all people. All
people, regardless of what they were doing, what they did, even the people who were torturing him. Like he saw the light within them, regardless of what they were doing in this life. And that is something that is very difficult for a lot of people to do, is look at that person as a light, as a spirit, and not the physical human being and all the bad things that appear to us that they're doing.
And so we're talking about emotional triggers and how things show up.
Mm-hmm.
And so how do they show up? And many things can be considered triggers. And we use our 5 senses to be part of those triggers. Mm-hmm. So what does that mean? That we can be triggered by what we see, from images to, the news can be a trigger for people. Movies can be a trigger for people. Think about when you're watching a TV show or a movie and they're portraying something and it's bringing up emotion within you, whether that's something that really like gets you like hyper nervous or scared. It can also be those moments where you're just bawling, crying because of what you're seeing on the screen, because maybe something represents something in your life that really hits home for you. And we can get emotionally triggered by the things that we see. We can also get triggered by things that we hear.
Yeah, or smell, or even taste.
Yeah.
Senses.
Think about this. It's holiday. It's gonna be holiday season coming up in the next few months. It's already halfway through 2020. And so when you think about it, what happens when Christmas time comes around? You go into the stores, you start smelling all like the cinnamon pine cones, or you smell all like the baked goods, and you can smell like pumpkin pie, and then you smell all this, and for a lot of us, it triggers a memory, and that can either be good or bad. So for some people, it's like, oh, I could smell that. It reminds me of a good time of Christmas and the holidays, and it makes us feel good. It makes us feel happy and joyous. For some, it could have been a very negative time in their life, and that can bring up a lot of upset and anger within them. So smells can have a trigger in our psyche as well. So we talk about hearing, smelling, touch.
Yeah.
Touch can be a trigger. Now we've had people when you go to give them a hug, and just the moment they put their hand on, hey, don't touch me. You know, because there's something within that touch is a very negative thing.
Yeah. Or even like the neck. Sometimes like I get that way sometimes. Like I don't, and it could be a past life thing. I think it was even my daughter. There's something like with the neck. I don't know. So it could be like it represent a trigger in a sense. You know, we don't get angry, but it's like it feels a little weird.
Yeah. So like we used all these senses, and they can show up as triggers of they can make us either feel really, really good, or they can make us feel really bad. And it's interesting because certain things can make people feel happy, and for others it could be completely opposite. It's like, why? Because we all have our experiences, like we mentioned before. And what happens because of these experiences, it starts to shape our perception of the world around us. It gives meaning to things. And so you had an experience in the past where, let's say you walked into a store and something terrible happened. You were to go grab something. You know, kids like to grab things in the shopping cart and put them in there. And the parent, let's say, scolds the kid for that, or takes him out and maybe hits him. You know, that happens.
My daughter used to do that all the time. I go to the store, and then I'd go to pay, and then there's all kinds of random things just thrown in there. I'm like, where did this come from? And then, you know, she would sometimes say, oh, I put it in there. And but it's, you know, it didn't bother me. I'd just take it out if we didn't need it or not.
But so think about that. Like, depending on the reaction of that from the people that are around that child, what's the response? Do they get scolded, yelled at, punished, or do they get praised and say, okay, not today? And then how do they put meaning? Then I could say, well, if they get punished or hit for it, then they're thinking in their mind, it's not good for me to have things. It's not good for me to ask for what I want. And now that shows up in the future, that becomes a trigger where they can't ask for things. They can't, they feel uncomfortable asking for what they want.
And it becomes a limiting belief now.
Exactly. And so this is how all this really gets ingrained into our subconscious mind. And when these triggers show up, and they usually go unconscious because our emotions really take over and get in the way. But when you become aware of it, you're like, wow, I'm getting triggered by this. And all that's showing you is, why is this triggering me so much? What does this represent to me? And now we look at it as, wow, this is a great opportunity to heal something that went dormant that we were completely unaware of.
Yeah. So let's go to some of the comments here.
Mikey's joining with us. Adam Cohen
Mikey.
says, my favorite people.
Thank you.
He says, I was that kid minus the hitting. It was a belt.
For me too, it was a belt.
Not a hand.
Not a hand.
And
I think I got both.
Yeah, and let me believe. But and how many people go through that? You see that. That's like my heart sinks a little bit when I see that in the stores and parents are yelling at the kids. And sometimes when you see that, it might trigger you because maybe it's a similar experience that you've had. You might see that on TV or whatever that is. But all of these little things around us become triggers. And the concept of these is how can we minimize the triggers in our life? So that way we don't get caught up emotionally and we can respond better rather than reacting.
So we had we were watching a movie a while back, and it was Jurassic Park, but I forgot which one, but
the Jurassic World, the latest one that came out.
And there was a scene in the movie where there was like fire and they had to leave. They took some of the dinosaurs on a boat, and there was one left behind, and then you could see like the fire behind him, and he was going to get burned. And I got triggered, and I was like tearing up, and we worked on it, and it went back to when we lived in these apartments in Carlsbad, and Aaron had.
This is 2014.
Yeah, there was these fires here in San Diego and California, and Aaron had left to go to work, and I was there. I was working on some cakes. And then I hear like people yelling, and then it got kind of dark. I'm like, what's going on outside? So I opened the door, the slider, and then in the backyard, because it's apartment, so in the back patio, I seen like a big cloud of smoke, like fire, and I could see like the redness of, but tons of smoke. I'm like, oh my gosh, like we're on fire.
Mm-hmm.
And I called the front office. I'm like, there's a fire like right here. And then she's like, oh yeah, but they haven't given us notice to evacuate. I'm like, okay, but I'm just letting you know it's right here. And then, so, I hung up, and she's like, you don't have to evacuate until they let us know. And I'm like, I don't care. I'm going to start packing. And then like, I was trying to get stuff but then I couldn't think. And I was like, it was already like emotional. So
like panic, it's panic time.
Yeah. So then I started calling people. I think I called my sister, and I finally got through. She's like, grab the money, grab like pictures, important things, and then just get out. And then I think I tried calling you, but
I was working at that time.
Yeah.
I got the message, but I was like maybe a half hour later, I think it was.
Yeah. So, but in that moment, like I couldn't think straight. And then, so I was just like grabbing whatever. And then finally, like, I think it was like 5 minutes after that, the maintenance guy comes in and he knocks on the door. He's like, you got to get out now. I'm like, okay. But I even stayed like trying to gather some things, but it was very traumatic. And then watching that movie, it brought up that same feeling of, I guess, like unsafety, or I felt like I was going to die or something. And it was interesting to watch that and then to feel that as well. So.
Yeah. So like when we have these different experiences, again, how we perceive that, the neighbor could have perceived the whole situation completely differently. I perceived it differently because I wasn't in the same experience as Veronica, because we all have our own world around us. And this is how things like phobias, also PTSD.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of times these emotional triggers are a form of PTSD, but just in different degrees, where when we think of post-traumatic stress syndrome, that's like the higher end of the spectrum. We're thinking like our military, our fire departments, and the things that they have to go through and experience. And it becomes so highly emotionally charged, it really affects them where they can't function.
Yeah.
And this is what can happen with emotional triggers. We don't function like we normally do, because our whole biochemistry is now shifting as if we're back into that experience again.
Yeah.
And it's like hormones change, your heart rate beats, you can sweat, and we start to go through these emotional bouts or upsets. And when you're in those highly emotional charged states, your whole reasoning conscious mind is pretty much out the door.
Yeah.
And without the proper training or understanding, a lot of people allow those emotions to take control and take over. And what happens is they might lash out. We talked about the kids getting hit. The parents get triggered by certain things, and where's that energy got to go? And a lot of times that gets projected onto other people.
Yeah. Even like the experiencing the abuse in the household. Sometimes when you're, you grow up and then you're out in the world, and you feel like someone is threatening you, and you can either get in that fight or flight mode and either start, getting into fights because of it, feeling like you need to defend yourself. And, sometimes that happens. Like you tolerate so much, or maybe you're short fused, and like any little thing, you're in a fight, or it could like build up. And then like that last little thing, and then you're in a fight. But it just depends on the person and how they've taken information in, and how they've either reacted or responded to it. But that's why it's important to have that awareness of what your triggers are, and then what we can do about them. So what are some things that, you'd recommend for people?
So if you're watching this show, whether you're watching live or on the replay, the things that we always have to, really address, and we stress this point to everybody, is we really need to be aware first.
Yeah.
If we're not aware or we're not paying attention, then we just run on automatic mode. That's just how our subconscious mind works. We run unconsciously most of the time. But when we become aware, and what I found is, if I want to make some improvements in my life, in our life together, then I know that we have to really work on all these different emotions, because they can show up and affect us in our relationship. They can affect us in our business and our work environment. It can affect us with our children or anybody that's around us, but really it can also affect our relationship with ourselves. And so when we become aware of, wow, these emotions really take over.
Mm-hmm.
You might be thinking, well, I feel depressed all the time. I feel bad. I beat myself up. And how do we feel most of the time throughout each and every day? And if it's not a good feeling, then there's something that still needs to be worked on within us that hasn't been addressed yet.
Yeah.
And what happens is we get these limiting beliefs, as we were talking about, and Mikey mentioned here into the feed. And we understand, why is that limiting belief there? And that limiting belief, has an emotion that's attached to that.
Mm-hmm.
And when you learn to identify and are willing to work through it, and we are willing to let things go and forgive ourselves, forgive other people, regardless of what they've done, because a lot of these triggers are because we want to hold on to things. It might feel that they serve us in some way, but all it really does, it disturbs your own inner peace in your inner world.
And it's a practice, because it's like if you grew up and, observing the adults or people around us, and it's like, someone does something that's hurtful. Most people hold a grudge against that other person, or they hold on to that anger. And whenever they see that person, it's like, there's that person again. And it triggers them, but we're not taught, how do you let go of that anger? How do you let go of, the resentments and all the hurts? And, like for me, growing up watching my parents, my dad, every now and then would be abusive to my mom, to us, and, just hurtful words that would come out of his mouth sometimes. But observing my mom, it was like, regardless of what he did,
Mm-hmm.
she was always respectful. And she would even like kind of get us in the middle of it and say, oh, go ask your dad if he wants anything to eat. And instead of like, oh, he can get his own food, like what most people would say,
Mm-hmm.
she was still like, I guess, trying to be nice, regardless of what he did. And, sometimes we would get frustrated, like, why do we have to go and ask? And, but observing that, it was like, I could see that she didn't hang on to that, whatever it was, like that anger, or, it could have been different things, but I saw that she was still nice regardless. And,
Mm-hmm.
and so, that kind of stuck with me as well. But then there's one thing of like not letting people walk all over you,
or stuffing it,
or stuffing it.
Suppressing.
Yeah. Because I told her several times I'd get a divorce, and my sister, she did too. And but she stuck through it, and it's I saw it differently, and I wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
have stayed there, but she chose to. That was her choice. But it was a learning experience for me, and it's experiencing that contrast of like, oh wow, like this is happening. And because of that, like, I know what type of person I want to be with, and it's definitely not that. It's like the opposite of that, but that was a good experience for me to see, and to know, to let me know what I truly want in my life.
And in our life, we all go through challenges in some way, shape, or form. And all of those challenges are absolutely necessary to help us to grow, especially in those first 10 to even 20 years of life. We were listening to something just recently that says, usually by the time you're 30 is when you've gone through all these different experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're starting to question, like, what is my purpose? Why am I here?
Yeah.
Until then, we're just going through the world and society. And we go through a lot of, trial and error, some pains and difficulties. But all of those experiences start to shape us. They tell us, like you said, what I don't want in my life. Here's what I want to be different. Because if you don't have that contrast, you don't know what it is that you want to change.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but we go through these moments. But what the challenge is we go through these experiences and we still hold on to them.
Yeah.
Meaning that we don't process it. We don't let those go. Maybe somebody had a really challenging time with parents growing up who are always fighting and complaining, and then those parents separated and divorced. And a lot of times we find those children as they grow up, because they become our clients, that they also have issues in their relationships, and they're going through almost the exact same thing their parents went through,
Mm-hmm.
because that was their experience. And in their subconscious mind, they're just taking it in like a sponge. This is what relationships look like. This is what
Mm-hmm.
love looks like.
Yeah.
And they don't know that on a very conscious level, but we learn through behavior. And like, we are all the sum total of our parents, also even our grandparents, their habits, their behaviors, and we take that on. And you'll know that because you'll find those moments when you're doing something, you say something, and that voice comes to your head like, God, I sound just like my dad. Or that's what my mom always does, and I'm doing the exact same thing. I told myself I would never do that. I'm doing the exact same thing my parents do.
Yeah.
Because that was what was taught to us.
Yeah, but it's also like how we perceive things. Like there could be like 4 kids. They all experience the same thing with, the parents or the environment, but each child is going to internalize what they're observing differently. So their perspective on it will be completely different than the other. So one could either follow in the footsteps and continue that same pattern, a negative pattern. And then another one can go complete opposite and just, it'll be different. So it just depends how the child is perceiving things and the way they think. Because if they think more on a negative side, they could either be like more angry, have more anger and lash out at people, or they could
their own world. Just like, it's like Veronica has her own world. You see things through your own eyes and you take it in and you perceive and try to make sense of that. I live in my own world. Even though we're here together, we experience things differently. Just like you, every single one of you experiences the world completely different than your parents, your siblings, your spouse, or your children. Everybody makes their own meaning because we all have our own filter. And we can't take in all this information. It's too much. It's an overload of information. And so this information goes in, and our mind, that conscious subconscious part of us, is constantly deleting, filtering information. And whatever's left over is what we take in. And now that becomes our belief systems. That becomes our behavior and our personality. And a lot of times we accept things that we should reject, and we reject things that we should accept a lot of times in our life. So we have to be very mindful of what is coming in, what's coming in through our senses. What are we defining in our life?
So like in the world of relationships, so if you were brought up in that fighting and arguing type of environment as a child, when you get older and like say you get into a relationship and it's a positive relationship, it's maybe the person is like very kind. Some people will self-sabotage that relationship because they're not used to it. It feels uncomfortable because when they grew up, it was very negative, very arguing. So it's like they're used to that drama of growing up, and to experience like someone who's very loving and complete opposite, it could feel foreign, and they will tend to sabotage it or create some drama because they're not used to that. But then once you work through your emotions and things that you're still holding on to from the past, then that becomes more like, oh, like this is good. This is a good thing. But it's interesting how the patterns that people still have, the limiting beliefs that we hold on to, that when they're still there, you'll either attract people with that same type of vibration, or maybe there's just like a little bit left that you have to work on. But when you see it, look at it as a good thing. Like, oh, this is good because now I know I have to work through something. Something is still there. Something's still showing up. And that's all it is. It's like letting you know that there's still something within your vibration that's attracting those type of people. Or if you just see it and it still bothers you, it doesn't have to necessarily be in your own life, but you see it around you and there's like other people, but it catches your attention like, oh, and you kind of feel bothered by it. That's just a sign to let you know that there's still stuff to work on.
Yeah, especially when you see something and you go home and you're still thinking about it and you're dwelling on it.
Yeah.
And if you find yourself constantly thinking about it, and each time you think about it, your emotions get more stirred up, then that's how things are getting triggered. So that's how it shows up in your life. And when you're aware of it, one of the first things I always will question myself, why do I feel this way?
Yeah.
That simple question of why, you will start to look for an answer. Why do I feel this way? Or first you got to identify, like, what is it that I'm feeling? Be mindful of the emotion that shows up. And then I might say, well, what do I feel? Like, I feel upset, I feel angry, or I feel sad with this situation. Okay, now that you've identified an emotion, why? Why does that upset you? Why does that make you sad? And you'll look for an answer. There'll always be an answer. And you might have to search for that and just keep asking yourself the same question until you come up with it. And because this ...
Mm-hmm.
And then if you can go further, keep asking the same question. Well, why is that such a problem? And you'll be, well, that bothered me because, and you just keep asking the question. It's like you're narrowing it down to one solid answer that's really coming something within you. Because I feel like people, I feel disrespected. I feel like people are disrespecting. Mm-hmm. And that word of disrespect could be the triggering mechanism. And the external environment just becomes the trigger for that, and what it represents. So anytime, and this is just one example because it's shown up when we work with people, is when they feel or there's something associates that there's a form of disrespect here in some way, they get stirred up in their emotions. Mm-hmm. And that can show up in any person. But the way we will look at it is that is, especially if it's a pattern and you see it often, it's because it's in your experience. As these show up because it's like the universe or God, the higher power of being, says there's something that you need to heal and work through. And we're going to keep that energy and vibration is within you. So we're going to keep bringing more people and scenarios that's going to keep triggering that until we learn to work with it. And when you work through it and you process everything, you'll find that those experiences don't show up in your perception as often.
Yeah. And it also has to do with how you think. Like, are you more on the negative side or the positive side? And the more good that you can see in people, even if they're doing stuff that you might not necessarily like, try to find the good in that person. Like, oh, this person is a good father, a good mother, they're smart, they just find something good about that person versus focusing on the negative
and judging and criticizing
them. Yeah, because when you judge other people, there's something either within you that you don't like, and you're pointing it out on others. So and it doesn't have to be verbally, but it's just like, even if you say things in your own mind, there's still something within you that you don't like. And they do this, but you could be going on in your mind about other people, but it's really what's within you that you don't like or that you want to change. So it's just awareness.
Yeah.
And we're all this mass consciousness, and we're all one, really. So it's like what you don't like in another person, you're really pointing that out about yourself.
Yeah, or there's something there. Mm-hmm. And what I found, just my own personal experience, when I've learned to work through things, and a lot of it's being aware of it when it happens. We've been doing this for so long now that we're highly aware when something shows up. And each and every one of you, it's going to be a process. Mm-hmm. The more you work through it, the faster you can process things. Mm-hmm. If it's your first time going through, you got to work through a few things. It might take you a while. Yeah. And you'll think that, hey, I've worked through it. I feel much better. Mm-hmm. But then, okay, it's like the test. Let's test you. And the universe will test you, and it'll bring something up, and you'll find if you find that you still get bothered by something,
it's just more to work
there's just more to work on. There's always different angles to do. And trust me, there's a lot of triggers. Just because you worked on one trigger, you got plenty more to work on. But base it on that one situation, that one incident, or that one thing that really bothers you, and you'll know that you're making progress when you see something like that show up again. And you are more centered and calm, and you can look at it from a different perspective. Mm-hmm. Things that used to bother and upset me, it's like I don't get bothered by it as much anymore, or it's less. And then okay, there's still a little something there, so I'll work on, okay, what's that residual that's still left over, and I'll process that.
And when once you let go of those emotions, like, you feel so much better. You feel like so free, and that's really what it is, because we create our own mental chaos by hanging on to these triggers. We create our mental suffering by hanging on to anger, to hurts, to anything from the past. Like, the past is the past, and let's just leave it there. Why do we focus on it so much and give it so much energy, and then you're left feeling drained? Like, it doesn't make sense. Like,
Yeah.
Why would we do that to ourselves? We just create our own suffering by focusing on that, and it doesn't serve us.
And you're not affecting the other person. You're only hurting yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where, and we saw it started to manifest in people as physical health issues.
Yeah.
They were going through all this chronic pain and discomfort. And they're thinking that, oh, I did something, or just give me the pill. They want to just cover it up and sweep the dust under the rug. And we'll tell them, you're holding on to a lot of emotional stress right now that you're not focusing on. Mm-hmm. And most people are not taught how to deal with their emotions, or it's a bad negative thing. They don't want to feel, because emotions can be painful in the moment.
Yeah.
And we avoid things that are painful. So I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to deal with it. I'm just going to distract myself with something else. I'm going to either stay busy, I'm going to medicate, I'm going to do something to not make me think about the thing that's bothering me. Mm-hmm. But what happens is, when you're not thinking about it, it's still in your physiology. It's still in your nervous system and in your soul. And it's eating you up on the inside. And it can show up in many different ways, mm-hmm. from headaches to physical pain to dis-ease in the body. Some people, I find, they were posting, I don't know why I can't sleep at night. This insomnia is really bothering me. I'm thinking, what are you holding on to? Because their mind's racing. They're in that fight or flight mode because they're in a highly emotional state, and we're not calm.
Even like excess weight. We've worked with people that, they were dieting, they were eating right, they were exercising, nothing. The scale wouldn't move at all. And, this one particular person had been raped when she was younger. And so in her mind, she created this thing like, oh, well, if I'm, overweight, nobody will want to do that to me, or I'm safe because, they're not going to want to approach me.
Yeah. It's not good to be attractive or to look at, because now I'm a target.
Yeah. Being a target. So, there's so many different things, and weight is usually like a protection. Like mm-hmm. you feel like you have to protect. So people put on excess weight, but it's all how they internalize things. So everyone's different. I'm not saying that that's the same case for everyone, but it's something to think about. And, our experiences, everything just, it kind of shapes us. Yeah. And so if there's something that's triggering you, just have that awareness, like, oh, I'm really getting triggered by this. And like Aaron said, ask yourself the question, why? And, the more we can let go of those emotions that we're holding on to, we'll feel so much better. We'll feel more free, more healthy. And it's just a better way to feel. And because then you're going to be more positive, you're going to attract more positive things into your life by letting go of that, that you're still holding on to.
And again, as we said earlier, it's a process, mm-hmm. and it's not always the easiest thing to do. And if you find you're struggling, you're having a hard time with this, and you find yourself always caught up in this emotional world, and your thing is, I just want to be happier. I want to learn to let go. I don't know why I feel this way all the time. It's really bothering me in my life or affecting me in different areas. And that's when we need to reach out for people that can help. Mm-hmm. And that's what Veronica and I do with our clients. We help them to let go and open up these emotional triggers that are still there, that they're unaware of, or that you might be unaware of. And we can identify exactly what it is and help you to learn how to release, learn how to let go of our emotions so you can heal from within. And that way we can create a whole different world for you. And that's what we specialize in. Veronica, it's interesting how you can really feel the emotions that people hold on to. She's very mm-hmm. empathic, and you can just walk by her and she'll feel something that's going on. She may not know exactly what it is, but she can feel it. I've learned to tune into that, where I can really tell when you're holding on to something. Yeah. Just like she always knows when I'm going through something. I know when she's going through something, when our daughter's going through something. And in the right moment, we heal through that. Mm-hmm. And we're here to give you that safe space to be able to do that. So if you're going through some challenges, you want to work through a few things, just send us a private message and let's see how we can help you, because that's what we love. And we love helping you to heal from these things.
Also, if you're interested and you're okay with sharing your experience and you want to do like a live clearing, we can also do that. And we'll do a live clearing session, and for someone who wants to work through things, because then, you could see how it's done and, share your experience.
Yeah.
And
if you feel safe and you're open to share.
Yeah.
live here on the show, we can do that. We've
Yeah,
done
we
that
can-
before. We
yeah,
do
we've
some
done
live
that.
clearings.
It's always amazing what comes up, from that. And it's sometimes what people think it is, it's not that. It could be something completely different that happened even before they were born. Like, we just never know where it's going to take us. So that's what's interesting about it.
Yeah, because it's hard for us to remember every little thing that happened in our life, especially if it's something that started, again, like you said, in the womb when you were 1 or 2. You might not have any recollection or any memory of anything that happened around that time. But what's interesting is we will take people to those time periods and just have them to imagine in their own mind, what do you think would have happened? What do you, based on your environment, how do you feel your parents would have been? And all this stuff happens. And it's interesting is they start to feel the emotion come up just by imagining it, because what they imagine becomes real for them. But because that energy is still there. That's how things can get triggered. You watch a movie, has nothing to do with you, but why are you getting caught up emotionally into that? We had years ago, we were watching a movie. It was a movie called Taking Chance, and it was with Kevin Bacon, and it was a movie about
you got triggered.
A person in the military who his mission was to. There was a soldier that was killed in the line of duty, and his role was to take this soldier home to his family and travel across country. And it was a really good movie. It's called Taking Chance. And by the end, when they were going through the funeral and folding the flag, I was just watching, and something just happened within me, and I just started just bawling and crying. I couldn't hold it back, because just that moment of the folding of the flag, it took me back to when my grandfather's funeral. And I didn't know he was in the military at the time in the past, and he had a military funeral. And just that incident, that it reminded me, and it was a trigger, and it was like something I had not really processed.
But didn't it also go back to a past life thing, some military past life thing with you?
Yeah, I think there was a lot of military past life stuff that I had to work through as well. But it was for me, it was real. I can feel it within my body and my energy. And I looked at it as a good thing, because I needed to see something like that to help unlock it, to help flush it out. And then we can work through it. So we always look at when you're getting triggered by something, notice that it's a good thing. And if you're willing to work through it, that's at least the first part. You have to say, yes, I'm feeling something. Yeah, it doesn't feel good, but I'm willing to work through this, or I want to work through this. Where most people, they don't want to work on it. And that's okay.
Yeah. So when you see someone that triggers you, or they're doing something that's triggering you, look at it as a good thing, and say thank you to that person. Like, you don't have to physically say it, but in your mind, say thank you for showing me what's still there. And, a lot of us look at negative experiences or bad experiences that or for us, they appear bad, but in reality, it's a good thing, because we know what we need to work on ourselves. And this helps our spirit. It helps us to awaken more. And by clearing out these limiting beliefs, these negative emotions that we're still holding on to, it helps us. It helps us to grow. And, so that's why everything that happens to us, good or bad, is always good. Because, we label it as bad, or it just is. It just is.
It's how you perceive it that becomes the issue. Because there's going to be certain things in our life that we can be labeled, that's not a good thing. We lose people in our life. There's some very traumatic things that happen in this world. But how do we choose to take that in? We were watching a documentary. Like, we were talking about movies because they can bring up so much. And it was a documentary on Auschwitz, and it was this concept of twins in the concentration camps, and young children that were twins, and what they would do to them. And they would show some of the survivors from that. And this one lady that I think was what they were doing the documentary of, she had total forgiveness. Total forgiveness for all the Nazis, the Germans, everything that had happened to her, even because her sister, I believe, was killed, her twin sister. And she just had so much forgiveness. And she went to talk to other survivors during this, and the other survivors could not understand how she could forgive them. They had so much anger within them for what happened, but she learned to have true forgiveness. And what that looks like is when you finally let go of everything, and especially if it's towards a person or a situation, is no matter if you think about it, you see it, you have no emotion that gets through, no resentment, no anger, nothing gets triggered up, and you look at it as a place of love. I've let that go. It's not saying you forget about it and it wasn't a good thing, but it's in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And I think those are great examples of how we can truly forgive. And there's certain things that's like, and it's very challenging. How do we forgive these certain things? And we all have different experiences. And I can look at it as, wow, that person is very strong. I wonder how they were able to do something like that to forgive, because I know it's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah. And a lot of it is how we're taught, because it's like, observing other people and how they react, when things happen. But learning to forgive is something that, that we probably all should learn to do. And because it is so freeing, and it's like, you could talk about things and it doesn't trigger you, or you can observe something that could be similar to something that happened in the past, where in the past it probably would have triggered you, but now it's like, oh, like that was just an experience, and it's all here to teach us.
Yeah. And when you're going through these processes, if you're just starting to work through all this, or you're a veteran at this, you'll find, even if you worked with this for years and helped did a lot of internal healing, you still find there's stuff that gets you. And you think you're this in the Zen place, my life is great. And then universe says, okay, let's see how you handle this one. And you find it disturbs your inner peace. But what you'll find is, even if you get triggered by something, and there'll always be something in your life, you get to make the choice. Am I going to allow this to control me or really affect me? Or am I going to push through and work through this? And that's something that we've made it a point in each and every one of us, Veronica and I, that's what I mean, to really work through as much as we can, because of what it's done for us and the experience of who I am today, who you are today, and how much joy and peace that has brought. And just, it's so freeing, because we used to hold on to so much, and things that always get triggered because we want to process or deal with it. And really it's just learning how to let go and go through the emotional process. And we've realized that when you actually go through it, it goes away very quickly.
It does.
What takes a long time is how long you want to hold on to it.
Is the deciding, like, should I, shouldn't I? And people go years before they
decades.
Before even deciding that they want to like let that go.
Yeah, we've helped people heal through something within like 15 minutes or less that they've been holding on to for like 20, 30 years.
And it's interesting to see, like, they're in so much pain, but they don't want to deal with the emotion that's really causing that pain.
Yeah.
But it's almost,
and they know it.
And they know. Yeah, it's just interesting. Like why still hold on to it? But it's like, I guess, like a habit that they haven't really, or maybe they haven't really experienced what it feels like to let go, because they've held on for so long, and they don't know. But
it becomes a strategy.
Yeah,
that's all we know how to do. So rather than, I've never been taught or learned how to lash out or express. Everybody around me always sucked it up and held it in. So that's what some of us, I learned to do that, was just bottle it all up.
Yeah.
Don't express it.
Yeah. And when you don't know that you can let it go, or if you don't know how to let it go, then I think that's where it's challenging, because it's like, well, this is all I know how to do. Like all these emotions, like I just know how to stuff it, and that's it. But when you experience letting go, even just a little bit, it feels so much better.
Yeah.
The body just relaxes, and the mind, actually, like, because you create all these things in your mind, and if you're dwelling on things like over and over, because of something that someone did 10 years ago, like that will really affect you. But it's that mental suffering that we all create ourselves by hanging on to all this stuff.
Yeah. And if you don't know how to do that, you might not know how, but the first step would be willing to. Are you wanting to work through this? Because if you don't want to, then there's no more moving forward.
Yeah. But just the moment you decide and make that decision, like, I want to let this go,
I want to heal.
I want to heal. I want to let this go. I want to feel better. Things will start to change. Like you might run into the show and oh, like they know how to clear that. So it's like, things will start to appear in your life that are signs, but it's the awareness, paying attention to those signs. Like you'll see things, you'll maybe see a book, letting go of emotions or whatever it is, and or a movie or something. And those are indicators like, oh, like I should pay attention and see what they have to say, be open to receive the help. But things like that will happen, and you'll meet someone. Hey, I know this person that can help you, or you'll watch the show, or someone will send you something, and it's that's just how it happens.
Yes, and it's the energy that you're putting out. So all that emotional energy, and which is a combination of your thoughts, your emotions, your behavior, personality, beliefs, that all becomes a behavior, and that's what we talked about that's called a vibration. That's a frequency that you're resonating and vibrating out into the entire world. And by a law of attraction, you start to bring into your experience more of the like type vibration, meaning you're going to attract similar experiences over and over. You're going to attract similar people into your life. You're like, why do I always attract these people? Why are these things always happen to me? And that could be either good or bad.
Yeah.
If a person could say, why does that person, this seems like everything always works out for them? Well, because they run at a different frequency or vibration than you or to us. And it's like, how can we mimic people like that? What's the difference between them and you? We're all different. We all perceive the world differently, but we need to learn how to change our energy. I mean, we let go of our emotions. When we let the emotion go, all your energy starts to shift. And now you change your point of attraction. And
a big one really is how we think. Because if you're still focusing and dwelling on the past, you're thinking negative. Like you're thinking negative thoughts and thinking about everything that everyone did to you. So it's really changing your point of focus to more positive, and then you'll see more positive. You'll feel better by thinking positive. And it's because when you think about like everything or stuff that people did to you that was hurtful and painful, it doesn't make you feel good. So you're creating that for yourself. You're causing yourself to feel bad just by thinking about it. So once you change your point of focus on things that make you feel good, your vibration changes. So it's something to think about.
Yeah. And that's a big thing. The awareness part is pay attention to how you feel. Your feeling will let you know. And you may not know what it is, but your feeling, it's gonna be there. It's gonna get stripped right into your physiology. That's what emotional triggers do. And they can hit you in times when you're not even paying attention. Or it's like, why do I feel good? Why do I feel bad? There's always a reason why. And it will start into a thought process. So we've done this where we've helped people to release a lot of emotion, but it keeps like stirring up again. It's maybe not as much because they keep the same thinking pattern.
So when a trigger does happen and you're in it emotionally, like you're feeling it, maybe you have tears rolling down, that's okay. And that's a good thing. And just feel it. Allow yourself to feel the emotion and just take a deep breath. Just breathe.
And no projecting on other people during this moment.
Yeah. Just, take that time for yourself to process the emotion, breathe through it, and just take deep breaths in and out. And as you breathe out, just visualize like that negative feeling leaving your body. And then, take other deep breaths. The breath in is just visualize light coming into your body. And then as you're breathing out, that light is filling your body and all that negative energy is just leaving. And then, after a while, you'll feel more calm and you'll feel better, just to process that emotion versus like, no, I'm going to stuff it. And it's so much, it's such a better feeling to let it go and process than to hang on to it.
Yeah. And if you feel uncomfortable with that, find a safe place where you can do that. Go in a room, go in the bathroom, some place where no one's going to see you. No one knows what's happening. Find a time and a place, set an appointment for yourself and do that. And if you feel like you don't want anybody to know, it's like it's your own personal work. You don't have to involve people unless you choose to. But sometimes you could be in a very vulnerable place, especially if you don't like other people seeing you go through emotion. Again, that's a perception. So find that time. I've done this myself where I'm going to go in my own quiet place and process everything. That way nobody knows what's going on. And
but you can't hide it.
But I can't hide it from Veronica. But you'll find that time where you can do that. Maybe when you got your place to yourself. If you do live by yourself, even better. Allow yourself to let that out. And that's usually if it's like sadness, but a lot of times if it's even anger, it's just allow yourself to, you'll feel more tension when that shows up, and you just breathe through that as much as you can. Until you find everything starts to calm down, and it will calm down at some point. And then when the emotions calm, it's let go, then that's a really good time for us to evaluate. Because it's hard to evaluate and really think when you're in the emotional state. So maybe just allow yourself that time to process the emotion. Again, be very mindful of avoiding projecting your emotion onto other people. Because it wants to come out, especially if it's an emotion of anger. It's so easy for people to snap on somebody else.
And once you process that emotion, in your mind, you can say thank you to that person who created the trigger. Thank you for showing me that I still have this emotion within me. And because that's what, like, those challenge, like people that we call challenging, or the people that trigger us, like it's a good thing, because they're showing us what we still need to work on, especially if you're feeling like a deep emotional trigger. And it's a good thing. Like it's a good thing when things like that appear, because it's just another thing that we have to deal with and process.
Yeah, and that's where people feel, oh, I'll feel better once they change, or they need to do all this to make me feel better in my world. They have to confine to all of my rules, and then I'll feel better. It doesn't work that way. You feel better first, and then what they do won't bother you.
And also,
or less.
Yeah. Also, once you work through your own stuff, you're not going to see it as much. You're going to see less of that, and you're going to attract more people that are more on the positive side, because you've let that go.
Or if there's something that goes against values, what will happen is you can come up with a better solution and a decision of what do you want to do with the situation. You can choose to leave certain situations. You can choose to have a better conversation and help people correct certain things, because we all run and do things that we're completely unaware of, and we don't know how much we trigger other people.
Yeah.
And we don't realize that we're doing anything wrong, but again, they are having their own experience, and you become their learning lesson. Yeah. And you may not be completely aware of that, especially if they don't express that to you.
And that's where good communication comes into place as well, because if you're not communicating, you're assuming that, one thing, and they might be, creating a whole different story in their mind. So if you feel like, oh, I wonder if, especially if they reacted in a different way than you expected, or you feel that there could be some kind of conflict, approach them, in a nice way. Like, I just want to make sure, like, ask the question. Yeah. Like, did I trigger you in any way? And then see how it can be resolved, but approach it in a nice way versus in a defensive way. Yeah. So it's all how you communicate as well, because if you approach it more like defending, they're going to defend back for the most part.
Yeah. And if you find, again, you're getting really challenged by this and are really looking to make a change in this in your life, you want to feel better, you want to be able to, experience more happiness and peace in your life, that's what we can help you with. And if you want to reach out to us, you can reach us at, just private message us at Aaron Veronica here on Facebook. Even if you're watching on YouTube, just send us a message. And if there's anything you're needing help with, let us know. We can have just a private conversation and see how we can help you. And we would love to help you in your healing process and be a part of that with you. And so I hope this has been very helpful for all of you that have been watching today. Again, you've been watching Awaken Your Spirit. We are your hosts. I'm Dr. Aaron Garcia.
And I'm Veronica Mendez Garcia. And we hope you enjoyed our topic for today, which was emotional triggers.
Let us know here in the comments how it's been helping you. If there's any challenges or things that have shown up in your life that you want to put in here, whether you're watching live or on the replay. We'd love to hear from you. Let us know how this show has been helping you. And, that's why we do the show, because we never know who this message is going to impact. And that's why we do this.
And if you want to volunteer to do a live clearing on any trigger you have, send us a message and, we can set up something where we bring you on the show and we do a live clearing. But you have to be okay with, being vulnerable, because that's exactly what it is. Being vulnerable, letting go of, whatever you're holding on to, if you really want to make a change in your life.
Yeah. And it's an opportunity to do it for free.
Yeah.
So reach out to us if you would like to be a part of that. And join us here every week, Mondays and Wednesdays at 9 a.m. Pacific time, 12 p.m. Eastern. And also join us on our new Thursdays with our Divine Numerology with our special co-host, Darius Oliver, where we talk all about numbers.
Yeah, that's a fun show. And if you haven't tuned in yet, numerology, it goes so deep. If you want to learn, more about like your birthday, even your name, like anything, or the place where you live, everything is all numbers, and you can see what it represents, what your name represents, what your birthday represents, and how it, he could tell you about your personality just by your birthday and
what your year is going to look like, what your month's going to look like. We've been discussing that. So make sure you turn on the live notification button here in the feed to get the reminders. If you're watching on Facebook, if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel and then turn on that little bell notification so you never miss an episode when we go live here. Well, thank you guys so much. We hope you enjoyed this. Let us know what your thoughts on the show are. And also, if there's anything that you would like us to discuss here on the show that's been on your mind, let us know and we can turn that into a topic as well.
All right. Have a great day.
Bye, guys.